Record. There we go. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Susan Rosen, and my guest today is Sunny Jain. And I am going to ask Sunny to introduce himself and tell us a little bit more about himself. And as you all know, I always prefer it that way because you don't want to be listening to me any more than you have to. Okay, welcome, Sunny.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for having me. And hello to everyone. Very happy to be here today. My name is Sunny Jain, CEO and founder of Flore.com and FloreClinical.com. We call ourselves Sun Genomics. These are our two arching brands, self-care and healthcare side of gut health testing. Myself, my background is in molecular medicine. So I was a microbiologist early on, and once upon a time, streaking Petri dishes and pulling out colonies of interest, and then moved into the commercial side and started developing lab tests for groups like LabCorp and Quest, mostly focused on like leading edge types of molecular diagnostic tests, especially when cancer and molecular oncology started to really have a need in biomarker testing. So got to participate in some amazing assay development and launches of tests, including one at Illumina where we launched the first clinical human genome sequencing test. So I got to be the first clinical lab scientist to process a clinical grade human genome inside of a CLIA/CAP certified lab. So that was just dumb luck, really, being at the right place, right time. And they had hired me and I was doing my job. So really fortunate, and now kind of have leveraged a lot of what I've learned from microbiology and human genomics into this opportunity in gut health and applying those types of techniques to understand really what's going on in our guts and that second half of our bodies.
Yeah, I think that's one area that so few people, I mean, it affects everybody, but so few people really understand what's going on down there and how they may be either making it better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's been eye-opening even to myself. In 2016, I didn't even give it its fair appreciation to our human physiology. I was just coming into it thinking, okay, yes, I know we have human cells and we are humans and we have human DNA, and this human DNA has a part in our blueprint and physiology. But then there's this microbial self. Yeah, we have some microbes on us. Great. They're symbionts, I guess. They work with us. Well, as it turns out, that's not all entirely true. There's trillions of human cells, and then there's an equal amount, trillions of microbial cells that live inside of our intestinal tract and are contributing up to 30% of the circulating metabolites in our blood system from that microbial self. And so this became kind of a pillar for me to understand, like, this is really important in human biology. We need to figure this part of our biology out, even though it's not actually our own biology. It's the biology of these microbes.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that some of those get in just from what we're eating. Are we born with some of them as well, or how does that work?
That is a fascinating area of research, which is the generational passage and inheritance pattern of microbes, because we understand that from, sort of Darwinian genetics, how human genes can be inherited, mother, father, and some inherited chromosomes and genes and some representation of each. And so we understand these sort of true genetic inheritance patterns. But what we don't understand quite to that level of degree of certainty is the inheritance patterns of the microbes from mother and father. But we do know that there is an inheritance from mother and from father, or other people in the household as you're growing up, or other environmental factors like the hospital system or like the home you're taken to when you're born. You're immediately exposed to microbes, and microbes are starting to do their thing. They're in your air, they're going into your bodies, they're going into your intestinal tract. you're starting to eat things, and as you age and get into toddler, and you're starting to eat microbes that are on food, and that's starting to become a part of your body. And so we just have this evolving gut until we're kind of settled in around around our teens, where we start to have a more mature gut microbiome that sort of sets the stage for a long part of our lives.
Okay. So first thing that came to my mind is, how has all of the change or the popularity of organic foods impacting that?
Yeah, it's something that we're trying to understand more and more every day. I mean, organic today, sort of implies chemicals or non-chemical produce, and perhaps non-chemical produce may have less perturbation of the produce's microbiome. But if you didn't put those chemicals on, maybe you would be eating a bunch of nefarious bacteria as well. And so there's got to be that balance. And I think today, in thinking of organic, most of us generally are kind of thinking of the toxicity that the chemicals may cause as we ingest the chemical itself. But we haven't really given it too much thought on the microbiome of the foods that we're eating and the soil that it is growing up in, and what those microbes would do to the nutrient supply of the fruit or produce when you're using those types of pesticides, and the impact to the soil. I think that's where we're seeing a lot more science happen in agriculture, where they're starting to explore the microbiome population in the soil of the foods that we eventually eat, and all the way to the supply chain.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, because it's from my understanding, which is only part way down the it's not deep. Part of with the organic, because there's organic meat, there's organic, seems to be everything. I mean, it's it's organic rugs and stuff right? But it would seem that
that's a nice rug, Susan. If you've got an organic rug, that's a nice rug.
There's a lot of them that are made with not, let's put it another way, not made with the now I'm drawing a blank on the name, but of all of the stuff that they treat the rugs with.
Yep.
Right. A lot of
the formaldehyde release from the new rug, and the VOCs or the volatile organic compounds that may come. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of permeated everything. Everything that we do, that we eat, that
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we haven't done much about the atmosphere, but you can't have everything.
It's a large challenge to take on in controlling all the microbial exposure that one's body is going to encounter in your lifetime. But our perspective is the riskiest part of that is at this very delicate interface inside the intestinal tract, where you just have a thin layer of endochromaffin or epithelial cells or endothelial cells that are lining the lumen of your intestinal tract. And the only thing separating anything that you're ingesting or air that you're breathing in is that thin layer of cells, and maybe some mucin, a viscous layer of protection. And if the mucin layer is compromised, or if there's any compromised portion of your intestinal tract, now this environmental stimuli, or this environmental microbe or stimulant could actually gain access into the insides of our body. We're defenseless. Our skin is a great barrier of defense, but if something's getting inside of our bodies, now we're going to be defenseless if that intestinal barrier is not kept intact. So that's kind of our first level of defense, so that we don't overwhelm ourselves with, the air and testing everything around us.
Oh,
That would be
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
insurmountable at some point to test everything. But you can test yourself, and you can understand
Uh-huh.
the exposure to yourself.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I mean, the whole thing is just very overwhelming. Absolutely. And I think it's just important for people to realize that there are certain things, right? Like if you're going to get the inside of your house painted,
Mhm.
you might want to kind of look at the paint or talk to the painter, right? That kind of thing. It's like if you're not doing that, then don't worry about it.
It's definitely a level of mindfulness
Yeah.
approach to one's environment and
Hmm.
exposure. And if you ever feel like you did get exposed, or maybe you went to a friend's house that they just
Uh,
put a new
yeah.
carpet, or you're hanging
Yeah.
out,
Uh-huh.
or they they wear the perfumes or colognes
Oh,
that you're worried about
not around
the
me.
phenol compounds, and we can see
Can't
what
do that.
impact this is having to the gut
Hmm.
microbiome from at least a level of understanding dysbiosis and sort of comparative, commensal group of organisms, what we loosely call, in quotes, a healthy comparison cohort, which we have
Hmm.
about 122 defined
Wow.
healthy individuals where you can kind of compare people and see where you're at. And if you
Uh-huh.
feel like you have an exposure or something that is happening and it's disrupting part of your gut, which is a key
Hmm.
part of your ecosystem balance,
Yeah.
then we'll be able to pin that down and
Hmm.
figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's yeah. It's one of those things where you got to have the base first before you can start building on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
definitely.
sure.
Definitely getting a starting point of of getting your baseline testing. Also, we recommend that at Florey, just because you never know
Hmm.
when you'll be exposed to some of these
Hmm.
factors. You could be traveling, you could be out of your home and comfortable environment. Many of us do travel during the summer months, and
Mm.
um, if you travel internationally, the microbes
Oh,
you're exposed to internationally may be different than the ones we're exposed to here in the United States. And so just being
right.
mindful of that exposure, and then, doing some check-ins every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And just be more cognizant of how you're feeling. A lot of
Yeah,
people will
definitely.
say, oh, oh, jet lag or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but not 3 weeks from after you got there. You know.
Yeah, there's
So it's
something that, you'd want to pick up sooner than 3 weeks. Yeah, if something is persisting beyond a general 2 to 3 day period of discomfort,
mhm.
we always recommend, yeah, getting checked out. And
Uh-huh.
part of that process could be gut focused. Part of that process could be just sort of figuring out anything you've changed in
Mm.
your environment or life, or stuff you maybe
Uh-huh.
brought home, or other things as
I was
well.
just gonna say, yes, exactly. That's one thing I think most people don't even think about, you know. Yeah, it is interesting. Um, so tell me more about what you guys in particular are doing, and who it is that you're interacting with.
Sure. So Flora is we're a precision nutrition company.
Okay.
And, our focus is on the 80 million Americans that are suffering from gut health issues every year. I mean, this is creating um, a precipitous increase in healthcare spending, especially in out-of-pocket healthcare spending for those that have chronic conditions that they're managing. Could be things like IBS, IBD, the Crohn's colitis, but it could even be gut access issues that are even more far-reaching than that, as
Hmm.
more and more science comes out on the importance of the gut-brain axis and our mental health, and the influence that the gut has over release of serotonin and other neurotransmitters and how that may interplay to our overall wellness. And we do this precision nutrition approach utilizing an at-home microbiome collection. Very simple. It's a small 1 ml or 2 ml tube where you collect like a pea-size stool sample and send it back to Florey Laboratories. And then we kind of take it from there. We process and extract all the DNA elements from the microbes from that sample. So not your human cells and not your human DNA, but the DNA of the microbes. And then begin to understand what functions do those microbes have that are living inside your intestinal tract, and produce a report so that you can understand what the identification of those organisms are. I like to call it the biggest house party where you don't know who's on the guest list, and it would be really important to know who's on that guest list. Are they good actors? Are they bad actors? And what's the balance of those? And then charting a path forward and doing that in a deliberate way. So today, most people, when they think of gut health, they might be thinking, oh, let's go to the probiotic aisle. I got to pick up my probiotic. Well, we agree probiotics can be helpful and beneficial for managing one's gut health, but the approach to the one size fits all is where we differ. And Florey believes in the precision approach, where we know there's a lot of uniqueness in the gut microbiome. You and I, from a human DNA perspective, we are probably 99.9% similar. But from a microbiome perspective, we may only be 10% similar. So it's that different from the microbiome. And this could explain a lot of the variation we see with, these types of long-term chronic conditions. And especially in IBS, where you see these subtypes A, C, and D. We definitely saw it true in our study we did in autism spectrum disorder, where there were different microbial populations dependent upon severity and symptoms. And there are different beneficial effects of these different ingredients, the bacteria and the polyphenols and the resistant starches that we provide back. So to kind of make a long explanation short, we take the photo and the snapshot of the gut, and we can identify everything that looks like it's out of place, and then produce a program to get you back to a better state of wellness.
Okay. So what would people get then? I mean, what would you be giving them to help them? Is it a particular diet, or is it, something to take along with a diet, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's so we have an e-health platform, so you can use a mobile device and you can register your kit and find out more information about like where you are in the process. You also get the report digitally there, where you can look through all your microbes and understand a little bit more information about them and what they mean to your own biology. And then we'll take it a step further. So unlike groups that are doing just like genetic testing, where they just may give you a genetic report back and tell you, oh, you have this SNP or you have this variant. We really believe in closing that loop and not just providing information, which can be shelved and hidden in a hard drive. We want to actually provide the solution, and then we'll actually custom manufacture the ingredients that will modulate your microbiome to a better wellness state.
Oh, wow. Okay. Like what? Like saying, oh yeah, start eating these foods and don't eat those foods? Or, I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's everything is sort of layered. And the first thing that we like to do is get people on the Precision Symbiotic, which is a probiotic and prebiotic mixed, and it's totally customized to you. So we pick out of our repository of 115 ingredients. We will select through our algorithms the 6 to 8 ingredients that would best fit what you're looking to achieve, what your health and diet
Uh-huh.
survey indicates, and what your microbiome indicates. And then we compound that into a single capsule. So it's a small 450 milligram capsule, 1-a-day solution. So you don't have to take 8 different
Yeah.
supplements at once. We're actually compounding that all together into a single capsule, avoiding that capsule fatigue, so that it can be a behavior that's pretty easy to get into the routine of. You take that
Yeah.
1 a day, and then we'll layer into that, once you're accustomed to that, the diet and the recommendations. We do offer recommendations broadly on a micronutrient level today. And then there are tiers where we can also offer custom recipes, and we can also connect you through our direct consumer side. We can connect you with clinicians on our healthcare side, where you can have a deeper functional medicine call. And there are all different ways that we can create engagement. Or you may be just coming straight to us from that functional medicine doctor, and we're supporting your functional medicine doctor in their program that they have laid out for you.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. Okay. So are you are you like, I don't want to say publicizing, but kind of getting the word out in online, or how is that working? Because there's so many different ways to get information out, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a lot of noise in the probiotic market and the supplement market, and cutting through it is, it is a challenge, but that's what we set out to do, right? Is to have a science-backed approach and really talk about, the reason why we're including this specific probiotic ingredient, because it has this clinical study that supports its endpoint result with the exact symptom that you said that you're looking to
Got it.
achieve. So we do that through, this sort of educational content creation. And then we also engage with media. We've been on a Netflix episode called Hack Your Health. Those that are interested in Netflix binge watching, I encourage you to add Hack Your Health to your playlist and give it a go, because it's a really fun way to learn about gut health. And our scientific advisor, Jack Gilbert, was featured within it, and really breaks it down in a simple way of why we should be more focused on gut health.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So I are you all finding, or have you found that most people don't understand the role that your gut actually plays in your health?
Early on, that was definitely true. So we started in 2016, more than 8 years ago. And part of our job was to be educators at that time, and unearth some of this scientific literature, bring it into relatable conversations, create blogs, create videos, create content on the internet that is truthful, but also readable. And
And
that can be a tough
understandable, right?
balance. Yes, that can be a tough balance. Um, and now I think things are starting to hit a tipping point. We do see, major outlets eating well, and Wall Street Journal and Fortune magazine and Times. I mean, they all have written about the gut health evolution and how it's changing the way we look at food, our environment, our soil, and our bodies. And so I think there is going to be a second wave of that gut health sort of education and commercialization. We've seen this first wave, and you see these more personalized consumer products being made and marketed on the shelves, whether it be your favorite department store or grocery store. We're now seeing this second wave, which is the science-backed,
Okay.
understanding and clinical studied understanding of these ingredients. So looking at ingredients within a population, what is that shifting in your microbiome? Is that
Mm,
shift genuinely good for you? Is that what you want? One example could be a big population, especially as we age, we
yeah.
see that enterobacteriae begin to increase in concentration.
Which
And
are
enterobacteriae are like Shigella, Salmonella, E. coli,
okay.
these types of foodborne
Uh-huh.
organisms. And for some reason, as we age into every decade of 50, 60, 70, 80, um,
Hmm.
we see an increasing concentration of the enterobacteriae.
Ah, okay.
Um, but if you were to keep that down, and especially in studies that have looked at centenarians and people that are living into the blue zone in
Mm,
the hundreds,
mm,
is that the enterobacteria were actually quite low in that population. And so
oh,
I think what we're going to begin to see are foods and ingredients that can help us drive down the concentration of enterobacteria because we don't want those to be elevated later in life.
okay. Okay. And then when would you be suggesting that people start, you know, utilizing, using, eating, whatever, all of those things as soon
Well,
as they're
sooner the
born
better.
or what? Yeah,
Yeah,
right. When they
the
come
healthy
out.
habits. Yeah, the healthy habits. They nothing. My hat's off to every parent that instills the healthy habits early. It's a hard uh, and long fought battle. I have a toddler and 8-year-old at home,
Oh
so
God.
I know the battle quite well. But instilling those habits early can create a very easy decision-making process later in life. And, even as you kind of pointed out, Susan, and
Hmm.
trying to trying to think about allergies and asthmas
Mm,
and things like that later in life.
hmm.
How do we curb that? Well, one of the ways that science is sort of directing us from the microbiome is that if we can manage our microbiomes earlier in life, then we may reduce the risk for asthmas and allergies
Ah,
later in life. And
okay.
perhaps there's some association um, of these microbes that we're inheriting either from the parental line or in our environment that are
Hmm.
associated with these continual asthmas and allergies. But there are known microbes that can help us break down carbohydrates better, break down foods better, break down these different compounds better. And
Okay.
so the sooner we start to um, educate ourselves on this, the faster we're going
Uh-huh.
to start to get to, feeling healthier. And if we wait, unfortunately, if we wait for all the industries to catch up with all the science,
Good luck, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, first you have to prove that they've got a huge market, otherwise they're not going to be interested.
yeah. Well, I think the world's
Unfortunately.
population is a big market, and if we can keep
Yes,
them healthy,
yes,
that's
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
it's a good
No, in fact,
opportunity.
that brings up, I was thinking as you were going, talking about all this, how much of this is very US and or Western, you know, focused. So in
Gut
other
health
words,
is,
if you're talking about maybe the UK might have a little bit more, if you get into, I don't know, Romania or something, it might not be quite the same.
yeah, it's an interesting question because I'm not sure one person or myself could answer that with ultimate
Uh,
clarity, but I could
mhm,
say that when we started to reach out to source ingredients,
uh-huh,
the place that we found the highest density of available ingredients was in Europe
mhm,
and Scandinavia. And so,
which makes sense, actually.
yeah, there's already some learnings and appreciation for organic farming, natural farming, and doing things that are generally gut health friendly. Whether or not they were doing that intentionally for gut health, I don't know, or if it was just part of their culture. And so we're learning actually quite a bit about here in the Western United States and generally in North America, the importance of management of one's diet and reduction of ultra processed foods and selection of a healthy portion of fibrous vegetables. It seems obvious, but we have to relearn it, I think, a little bit, and maybe challenge the food pyramid a bit.
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because we have to, I think one of the things that we have to do that I think most people don't understand is that you've got to change your taste buds, right? There's so many people that from, the age of 6 months or something, were given sugar and other things of sugar, right? It might have been fruit, but it's still sugar.
Yeah.
And
sugar-coated sugar. They actually sell that at the fairs. They take fruity sugary fruits and then they dip them in more sugar. Like
I know exactly. And it's one of those things where not only do you have to break it, right? You gotta get the information to them first so they even think about it. And I don't think like Europe never, I don't think, got to that point. They've always seemed to have better food. I don't know what the right word is, but for what they eat and where they get it from.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of awoken, to that now, and you do see that influence, especially when we go to like natural product expos. We're seeing all sorts of innovative companies thinking about, different ingredients that are better for you options, reducing the sugar content, but how do you still make it flavorful that you can enjoy it? And so there's this new evolution of snack foods that still may be processed, but at least they'll have healthy alternative ingredients within them. And at least if we make choices to have some of those covered sugar ingredients, we know it's just for fun or for culture or for enjoyment or memory of when we were a child or whatever it may be. And not something that we would consume sort of on a regular basis.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, I think it's still a uphill battle at this point. I think there are areas that are more open to it. California probably, well, not all of California, but certain areas in California probably. But
this is where we think, it's not only maybe a problem that we created, that this could be something that is sort of scientifically driven, and that data now is starting to come out, which is that our cravings, including for our cravings for sugar, could be generated because of the bacteria that are in our intestinal tract. And so if we can manage the bacteria in our intestinal tract in a proper way, by either supplying it the right fibers and fructooligosaccharides and other prebiotic components and resistant starches and polyphenols, if we're feeding it the right ingredients, then the metabolites or the triggers into our endocrine system or hormonal system or downstream cascade, it may be mitigated, or reduced so that it's not triggering these food cravings. But when you start to eat sugar, and maybe Susan, you've experienced this, is like when you cut sugar and you're on this like diet of like vegetables and your lean meats and your proteins and stuff, you start to think like, man, why did I ever have desserts. I don't need desserts ever again.
Yeah, yeah,
But then you go to an event and you have a dessert and you're like, man, this cookie is good.
yeah,
I can have one
exactly.
more.
Yeah, right.
uh, and so this is
Yeah,
sort of this
yeah.
positive feedback loop that these cravings can create that get us in this sort of snowball effect. And if we can break it and restructure our microbiota as well,
Mm,
we can have
yeah.
that change biologically that may help us make the better decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting too because there's fruit is in there, right? Which is natural and full of sugar, most of them, you
Yeah.
know.
But hopefully the fruit has is laced with fiber, I'd like to
Oh no,
say.
absolutely. Like an
So
apple, like
yeah,
apples and bananas and all of those, most of them do.
yeah,
But it is interesting because it just for some reason it gets people's sugar motivation
it does.
started,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh
So
yeah, I need more sugar.
so there are still really nice fruits that you can eat,
Hmm.
blackberries, raspberries,
Hmm.
strawberries.
Oh yeah, they're very
Um,
sweet.
yeah, and they still have sweetness to them and cherries, but they also have
Yeah,
this second component of the flavonoids or the
yeah.
egalantans or the polyphenols or the things that are going to actually be prebiotics for those strict
Hmm.
anaerobe bacteria that are
Mm.
commensal bacteria, which are positive or beneficial bacteria that are going to in turn release positive
Hmm.
metabolites for you.
Yeah.
So if we select those types of fruits
Hmm.
that come with these other value added benefits,
Right.
then I think there is a place for healthy fruit, and we see it in our studies. One of the biggest differentiators between the microbiome of sort of high diversity microbiome and the and again I use healthy in quotes healthy cohort population studies um, is the presence of fruit and fish oftentimes in the diet. And so both of those have been implicated as um, in the healthier diets. The Mediterranean diet, of course, is always
Oh, okay.
mentioned.
Right.
And so I think there is a place for fruit from
Hmm.
the microbiome perspective. It's just being conscientious of the sugar content.
Yeah. How much? Well, it's like everything, right? You don't want to have half your diet be one kind of food, even if it's a healthy one.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, I think we've kind of beaten that one to the end of
If your doctor hasn't told you already, it all comes to diet, and
that's true.
the
Oh no,
only
it's
thing that
very true.
the only thing that we're changing here is why are we eating these diets? It's
Hmm.
not just
Hmm.
for your human cells. It's not to feed your human self. Uh, the reason we need to change these diets is that there's this 30 trillion microbial cell population that is driving your biology, and if you don't change what you feed it, it's going to turn angry on you, and it's going to release, aberrant or negative metabolites, and you don't want that.
Okay.
And so, if you feed it the right
Okay.
things, then it's going to give you the benefit.
Just out of curiosity, is there also some sort of relationship between what part of your body it kind of goes good or bad, right? So in other words, it's your brain or your heart or um, I don't know. That's the first two that kind of came to mind um, from eating particular foods too much or not enough.
Yeah, well, this is the part of precision that we're exploring is because there
Mm,
are,
okay.
so our test will analyze 25,000 unique species of the gut
Wow.
microbiome. An individual may have up to 500 to 1,000 unique species within them. And so every one of those organisms has its unique genome and the
Mm,
capacity to release these unique proteins or metabolites into your body,
okay.
which may then send a signaling pathway into our human cells. And
Uh-huh.
so, how do we manage this big data challenge? with all
Yeah.
these potential pathways, with all the combinations of food that we could possibly be eating.
Right.
And so what we try to do is make that easy and simple. We've got a database that understands what is driving the changes in these microbial populations, and if that's a good microbe or negatively impacting microbe, what types of molecules,
Mm,
fibers, foods
okay.
are going to shift those microbes, and then guide the recommendations based off of that information. So that's how we kind of view
Okay.
all the diversity of food and what you can do with
Uh-huh.
the gut microbiome.
Yeah. Okay. Just curious. Okay. Well, um, are you looking for people to contact you or their doctors, or how does one get to, utilize some of the information that you have?
Well, we encourage everyone to have those conversations with their doctors,
Hmm.
especially about gut health, and ask your doctor, what are you doing about my gut health and my caretaking? So you've drawn
Hmm.
my blood, you've looked at my cholesterol, you've looked at my A1C. What are
Yeah.
you doing related to my gut health? If
Uh-huh.
there are 30 trillion cells in our body contributing to our wellness, what are we
Right.
doing about our gut health? And that should definitely be a conversation with your medical team. But you can also go to flore.com.
Hmm.
It's pretty easy. You can sign up there for adults or kids programs where we first gut test, and then we do the combination of ingredients and ship that over to you on a monthly basis. And then
Oh,
you can also go to floreclinical.com. And if you want to introduce your doctor, you can click a link there and introduce your doctor to Flore Clinical.
oh, interesting.
Or if you're a doctor or a practitioner already seeing patients and
Uh-huh.
you want to introduce gut health solutions into your practice,
Mm,
we help you do that in an easy way to avoid having to figure out what probiotics to give your patients, or, it's a
yeah.
question
Yeah.
that always comes up, or, what testing solutions to use.
Mm,
We use a metagenomic high resolution processing test. Of course, that's my background in lab developed tests and assay development. So
yeah.
we did it with the highest quality medical grade equipment
Uh-huh.
that we could, and we think this is going to be the next molecular
Mm,
diagnostic test to come to market and make the microbiome standard of care for everybody. So if you're born and you're an infant, you should have a microbiome test done. If
yeah.
you're developing toddler, you should have a microbiome test done with your checkup. If it's your annual physical, should be a microbiome test included in there.
Yeah.
And
Good
so
luck
you
with.
can do that through introducing your practitioner, or if you're a practitioner
Uh-huh.
yourselves, you can sign up today.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I'll put some of this information in the show notes, but um, why don't you spell out Flore for people so
Yeah,
they're
Flore
not
is just
trying the wrong thing?
yeah, sure. It's FLORE, flore.com. And
Okay.
Flore Clinical is Flore, FLORECLINICAL, clinical.
Okay. So no hyphen or anything in between.
No hyphen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We'll do. I will put all that in the show notes for people if they start looking. Usually they don't, but I put it in there anyways.
Well, appreciate it, Susan.
So thank you very much for coming on. I do appreciate the information. Nice to know that people like you are doing more than what we see usually, right? Or hear about. And so I will also say that neither of us are doctors, and this is not to be seen as medical advice. And with that, I will be seeing everybody next week.